The federal government's COVID-19 enquiry is being criticised for failing to examine the impacts of school closures on children. National Children's Commissioner Anne Hollonds says that she will be personally writing to the inquiry with a number of recommendations.
I think children should be looked at by this inquiry, and if we do look at children, then we should be looking at all the decisions that were made that impacted on children. So I'm still hopeful that that can happen, and if not, if the terms of reference don't allow for the examination of school closures on children, then there should be some other mechanism set up to do that. We have a lot we can learn from the international evidence now on how children were cared for during the pandemic by different countries and their different measures. And I really think that that spotlight on the unique needs of children is very important. At the time of the pandemic, I was very disappointed that there was so little attention to these unique needs of children, that there was no one at that top decision-making table whose job it was to represent children, and no chief paediatrician, no minister for children was there. And of course, now we've seen this long tail of impacts that have been widely reported of serious mental health issues for much younger children, school refusal, that kind of thing. We really have to learn from this experience and make sure that we don't ever repeat the mistakes again. We know that some kids were fine because they had families with resources and able to help them, but there were many, many children from families with complex needs and disadvantage, perhaps with disabilities to manage. They didn't have devices for all the children. But by the way, we learned that school is about much more than just academic learning that can be replaced by Zoom, and that social learning environment was absent. This had very serious consequences, particularly for those children whose home lives were not what we would want them to be. There was also, now we know that child safety risks went up because the lockdowns meant that child maltreatment could not be investigated as it should be. So, you know, these are the unique needs of children that we need to pay attention to. And by the way, children and young people under the age of 24 are about a third of the Australian population. And I think it's about time that we as a country really looked at our obligations under the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And the Commonwealth is a signatory to that convention. So I'm still hopeful that children can be a focus of this inquiry. I will be writing to the inquiry myself, and the sorts of things that I will be recommending is that we look at the international evidence on how children were cared for during a crisis like this, what we should be doing next time. I'll be recommending that perhaps we should look at a child wellbeing council of multidisciplinary experts who could provide advice to governments at critical times like this, and ideally that there be a Minister for Children whose accountability it is to pay attention to the unique needs of children and young people.